Hello. In this video, I want to talk about weekly planning, the idea of a weekly planning meeting. I think that they say that an hour spent in planning saves 10 hours in execution. I don't know how true that is, but I know that I can't imagine heading into a Monday while having had my weekly review. I suggest that you set up your weekly planning meeting, same time, same place, every week. Set up as a recurring event in your diary. If you have an assistant, include your assistant in the planning meeting. I do mine on a Friday afternoon. That's when I like to do it. I sit down and I chunk out a couple of hours, and that way I head into the weekend with the following week planned and not having to worry about what are the things I have to do on Monday. So my head is clear, I know what I've done, and I know what I'm ready to do the following week. In the planning meeting itself, in the review meeting itself, there are a few key things you should do. The first thing you should do is sit down and actually review what happened last week. Look at your diary. I color code my diary, so I always can see what my one thing activities are, how many of them what did I do, how much time did I spend on them, and on other activities. So I have a very, very clear view of my diary of where my time was spent, what I spent on things that really make a difference, to really leverage myself. That's really important. You look back over the previous week and say, what actually happened? You revise the plan, you update the plan, you tweak the plan, you change your monthly one things if necessary, your quarterly, your annual one things if necessary. This is a living, working document. And certainly you focus for the following week, what are the key things you have to do under your headings. Obviously you'll have a business one and you'll have a personal one. We'll come to the business one in the fullness of time. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you look at the coming week and say, okay, what's my focus for next week? What are my activities? So you define your activities in your one thing plan. And once you've defined those activities, you turn them into actions. I use reminders, I just drag them over and convert them into actions, loads and loads of actions that I prioritize. And then I go back to our chunking idea that we talked about previously. I chunk out the time in my diary, I drag these activities into my diary, I make them into meetings or events in my diary, chunk out the time to do them so in fact they get done. So I have my week planned in advance. I have my meeting scheduled, I have my activity scheduled, I have my one things scheduled, so I can actually see how much time is available to do the one things. Because remember, there's no point making the list of things to do unless you can chunk out the time to actually do them. Otherwise it just won't happen, and what will happen is you'll be frustrated at the end of the week. I'm always working on the most important things. This is critical to me. I always know what is the one thing I'm trying to do that will really make a difference. What is it right now? What's the one thing I can do such by doing it, everything else is easier or even unnecessary? And having that in front of me all the time is really empowering. It gives me a real sense of focus, a real sense of purpose, a real sense of being in control. Which is very, very important for your productivity. It's very important for your courage, for your stamina, for your motivation. If the moment makes sense, remember this, we've said this many times, if the moment makes sense, if you can see a plan out for the week in your weekly planning meeting, a review last week, you look at next week, and you can see that in the coming week that the moments make sense, if right now makes sense, then your life makes sense. And then life becomes very, very simple. If you do a review and you haven't accomplished your goals, you haven't done the things that you said you do, don't beat yourself up. Remember, it's called learning. It's not called failure, it's called learning. So don't beat yourself up. Say, okay, what worked, what didn't work, why not? What have I learned? Revise the plan, change the plan, and move forward in the coming week.